boys and girls. This is Miss Michelle from the Abu Dhabi Children's Library, and we're here today to hear some stories. Now, the stories I'm going to tell you are something called a folk tale. A folk tale is a story that's passed down from parent to child over time, and some folk tales, because they're such good stories, go from country to country. So maybe there's a version of the story at your home, or maybe you've heard it from your grandparents who came from another country. Now, we're celebrating folk tales and legends, and they're traveling from country to country through an exhibit called From Cinderella to Sindbad. The story I'm going to tell you today is based on a book called The King and His Three Daughters. And this is a story that's told in Kuwait and the Emirates and other GCC countries. But a version of this tale is also told in Europe. And I'm going to tell you my version of the story. Once upon a time, there was an emir, and the emir had 3 daughters. His wife had gone to heaven, and as his daughters grew, he took care of them. He built a small palace near his palace for each of the daughters, and every day he would go and visit them and talk to them. He was happy with what he saw. He thought his daughters were wise and kind, and someday when they got married, they would be good queens to his people or to his neighbor's people. So, one day he thought to himself, everything seems to be going fine, but I wonder, do my daughters really love me, and do they appreciate everything I've done for them? So he went to his first daughter and he said, "Daughter, I love you so much. How much do you love me?" And that daughter said, "Papa, I love you like honey. You know I like honey cakes. I like honey in my tea. I love you like honey, Daddy." And the emir was very pleased. He went to his second daughter's house and he said, "My daughter, I love you very much. How much do you love me?" And his daughter said, "Papa, I love you like sugar. Sugar is the sweetest thing in the world, and for me, you are sweet and kind and gentle, and if you were a cookie, I'd eat you right up." The emir was very pleased. He went to his third daughter's house, and he said, "My daughter, I love you very much. How much do you love me?" To his surprise, his daughter Fatima looked at him and she scratched her head. And she said, "Papa, I love you just like I love salt." The emir was very puzzled. What does she mean by that? Salt is bitter on the tongue. Is she not happy with me? Is she ungrateful? How could she say that to me? He got very mad and he said, "My daughter, I don't think I heard you right. Can you tell me again? How much do you love me?" And she said, "Papa, I love you like salt." The emir was furious. He said to his servants, "I cannot take this. This woman is not my daughter. Throw her out of the palace. I don't ever want to see her again." And the servants picked her up and threw her out. She was very hurt and sad, and she wandered about in search of work. Her father did not want her in his kingdom, so she went to the next kingdom nearby. She had walked long and hard. Her clothes were in tatters, and she looked like a beggar. She had just reached into the city and looked for work, and no one could give her a job. Finally, as she walked, she found a tree right near the palace. She was exhausted, and she fell asleep underneath the tree. As she was sleeping, the gates of the palace opened, and out came the emir and his son. And his son said, "Father, look, there is somebody sleeping under the tree." And they walked up and they looked, and they saw a girl covered in rags sleeping underneath the tree. The emir's son said, "Papa, look at the poor beggar woman. We should help her out." So He instructed the soldiers that when the girl woke up to find her a job in the palace. He got back on his horse with his father, and off they rode to go hunting. Fatima was very happy. She was given a job in the emir's kitchen, and she worked very, very hard, but she missed her father. But what could she do? So she worked and worked, and as she worked, her hard work was recognized, and the kitchen became orderly, and she was a good cook, and the emir and his son noticed that the food had changed in the palace. The emir's son said, "I think I should go down to the kitchen and thank the cook. This is the best food I had ever eaten." He went down to the kitchen, and there he saw Fatima. He couldn't believe his eyes. The beggar girl, who was once asleep under the tree, was now running the entire kitchen. And he looked at her, and the heat and the steam from the kitchen made her cheeks rosy. It made her hair plump, and he thought she was quite cute. He talked to her, and she did not cower in fear from him. She did not try to flatter him. She answered his questions in a very businesslike way, and she said, "I am happy to have this job, and I will do whatever I can to take pride in my work and make you proud of the food. I want you and your guests to have the best experience possible." The emir's son liked her attitude, and whenever he got a chance, he would come down to the kitchen and talk to her, and before you knew it, he was in love with her. He said to his father, "Father, I am in love and I want to get married." The emir said, "Which princess has caught your eye?" "No, it is not a princess, father. I have fallen in love with Fatima, who is the head of our kitchen." The emir was puzzled, and he said, "My son, I love you. You are a young man. You are handsome. You are bright. Why would you want to marry her?" He said, "She is kind. She is gentle. She is hard-working. She thinks what is best for us in the palace. I noticed that she has very good manners, and she speaks like someone who has been well taken care of and educated. She would not shame me if she was my wife." The emir did not know what to do, so he had his servants watch her, and sure enough, everything that his son said was true. He tried to get his son to meet other girls, but his son was not interested. Eventually the emir said, "This is fate. I must accept it." So the emir's son and Fatima were married. Over time, the emir grew old, and he realized it was time to retire, so he asked his son and Fatima to take care of the kingdom, and they began to rule very well. About 5 years into their reign and taking care of the people, they received a notice. The notice was from a nearby kingdom. The emir there said, "I would like to come and visit you." Fatima had a strange look on her face, and her husband said to her, "My dear, you look a little bit disturbed. What is wrong?" Fatima said, "Oh, it is nothing, my husband. I'm just thinking of ways to make you proud of me. If you let me handle everything, this will be the best royal visit ever." And he did. Now, do you know who's coming to visit Fatima, boys and girls? It's her father. I wonder what she would do. Well, Fatima went down to the kitchen, and she told the cooks, "I want you to make these recipes. These are recipes that the other kingdom people like to eat. And we'll also, of course, cook dishes from our culture as well. But I want you to do one thing. Do not put any salt in any of the dishes." The cooks looked at her and said, "Do you understand what the food is going to taste like if you do this?" She said, "Listen to what I say, and I promise you, you will not get in trouble at the end of the meal. In fact, everyone will be so happy you won't believe it." So Fatima went upstairs, and she got dressed, and she put on her best clothes, and she covered her face with a burqa, and she waited for the guests to arrive. Her father showed up, and she watched as the dinner progressed. Her father took a bite out of the first dish, and he was very happy because he said, "How kind of you to make me something from my home country. I am very happy you thought of me in this way." But when he bit into it, he had a strange look on his face, and he quickly moved to the next dish, and he started to taste everything at the table, but he never ate much of anything. The emir was puzzled. He said, "My guest, are these dishes to your not liking? What is wrong? Why will you not eat them? Can I get you something else?" He looked at his wife very concerned, but Fatima shook her head, as if to say, "Don't worry, just go on." So he said, "Can you tell me, my guest, what is the problem? I will instruct the cooks to make food just to your taste." The emir said, "Everything is nice, but they're missing salt." "Salt? I don't know what's going on." Fatima said to the emir, "Emir, why do you need salt?" The emir scratched his head and he said, "Well, salt's a nice thing to have." Fatima said, "But I heard you don't like salt. Many years ago, a beggar girl came to our palace and she told us a sad tale. She told us the story of her father who threw her out of the house because he did not like salt. He only wanted to hear the words honey and sugar." The emir got a strange look on his face. He thought for the first time in a long time about his daughter, and he wondered what had become of her. She was a beggar? Was she well now? He asked, "What happened to that girl?" And she replied, "She's someone who sometimes helps out in the kitchen. Would you like to meet her? Come with me." Fatima took her father down to the kitchen, and when they got there, she took off her burqa and showed her face to him and said, "Papa, do you know me?" The emir was overjoyed to see his daughter safe and well, and even better, that she was married now, and she was a co-ruler in a land. And he said, "My daughter, I have done you wrong. Until we just talked, I never realized when you said you loved me like salt, you weren't thinking of me as something sweet that you can have when you want. You think of me as something you cannot live without, because every day if we don't have salt in our dishes, what will we do?" Everybody was happy, and there was a big celebration that night. The second story I'm going to tell you today is a tale of Goha. Now, Goha, Jua, and Nesmuruddin are all characters whose stories are told throughout the Arab world. Sometimes they're very wise men, sometimes they're foolish men, sometimes they just have funny things happen to them because it's just their luck. The story I'm going to share with you today is called Goha and the Wishing Stick. It's also called Goha Makes a Wish, and this is my version of the story. One day, Goha left his farm and began walking. He needed to go to the Sultan's city to sell some of his goods. So he had a small bag of goods on his shoulder and he went walking. Now Goha was very poor and it was a long journey, and the more he walked, the more his sandals got worn down. And his sandals were very floppy and very dirty, and it was very hot and very tiring for him. And all he could think about was finding a place to rest and taking a break. Now he walked along until he found an old building that was run down and no one lived there. And he began to sit down. And when he sat down, he had something hit his back. And it was a pot. Now the pot had a lid on it. So he thought to himself, maybe there's some yummy food inside, or maybe there's some cool water. So he slowly opened the lid on the pot and he looked inside. And to his surprise, the only thing that was there was a piece of paper and a strange-looking stick. Goha opened up the paper and he read it, and it said, "Dear stranger, here is a magic wishing stick. Use it wisely and it will always help you. Use it wrongly and you'll regret it." Goha was very happy. He thought to himself, a magic wishing stick. I've heard about these before. I know what I want right now. So he grabbed the stick and he held it and he said, "Magic wishing stick, my wish for is a pair of new comfy sandals." And he waited and nothing happened. He thought, I'm not using it right. So he closed his eyes and held the stick in both hands and said, "Magic wishing stick, I wish for a new pair of sandals." And he heard a sound, and it was like, poof! And he looked down, and to his surprise, there were no new sandals. There were no sandals at all. He was in his bare feet. He said, "Something's not right. Maybe you didn't hear me." So he closed his eyes and held the stick again and said, "Magic wishing stick, please give me a new pair of comfy sandals." Poof! He looked down. Nothing had changed. Goha was very upset, and he said, "Magic wishing stick, what is wrong with you? This was just a simple wish. Can't you help me?" And he scratched his head and he thought, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I have to get to the city, so I must walk anyhow. He was not very happy because the road was hot and had pebbles, and his feet hurt. But what could he do? As he walked, he thought about how to make the stick work right. Now, as he was walking along, he saw some dust in the distance. It was being caused by many riders coming towards him, and as he looked, he could make out the Sultan's soldiers in their uniforms, and they were riding horses and donkeys. And Goha thought, I've heard about them. People say they're nothing but trouble. They like to pick on people. I must be very careful as they come near me. So he put himself to the side of the road, and he was a little bit afraid, so he held the magic wishing stick in both hands and trembled a little bit. He watched as the soldiers get nearer, and there was a big captain on a big horse and other soldiers on horses and some on donkeys. The captain said, "Make way, old man, make way. Here we come. We are the Sultan's men, and we are on business." Goha watched them, and he looked at one of the donkeys, and he thought to himself, it would be very nice if I had a donkey to take me to the city, just like the ones the soldiers are riding. If I can ride a donkey, all will be well. I want to ride a donkey to the city, he thought, and he heard poof, and he looked around. Was his wish granted? He looked and he looked. And you know what happened? The soldiers who just rode past him turned around and they came to him. And they said, "Old man, what did you say?" And Goha said, "I said nothing." And the captain said, "I heard you talking about a donkey." And Goha shook his hands and held the stick because he was afraid. And he thought, don't let them know I wanted to ride a donkey. And he heard, poof. And do you know what the captain said? The captain said, "Old man, I heard what you said. You want the donkey to ride you to the city. I have never heard of something like this, but it sounds great fun." And Goha said, "No, I don't want the donkey to ride me. I'm the man. I should ride a donkey." "No, no, no. You must do what you said." So they put the donkey on Goha's back, and Goha walked to the city. Everybody laughed. Here was the old man carrying a donkey that kicked and hee-hawed, hee-hawed, hee-hawed. When they got to the city, the soldiers allowed Goha to put the donkey down. Both Goha and the donkey were happy. Goha thought to himself, "Magic wishing stick, this is all your fault. You did not do what I asked you to do. Until I can figure out how to make you work, I will say nothing, lest I get in trouble again." So Goha took the magic wishing stick and put it in his belt once again and began to walk through the city. As he walked, he heard a voice say, "Make way! Make way! The Sultan is coming! The Sultan is coming!" Goha pulled back like the rest of the people, and as the Sultan came down the road, people would bow and they would cry out, "O Sultan, may you live for 100 years. O Sultan, may you live for 100 years. The Sultan was very pleased to see his people bowing and wishing him well. And as he walked past the people, he noticed there was one person saying nothing, and he was a little bit concerned. He said, "Old man, I see you bow, but your lips are not moving. Why are you not wishing me well? Have I offended you in some way?" Goha kept his mouth shut. He was afraid of what might happen if he talked. So he held on to the stick and he shook his hands and said nothing. The Caliph looked at him and he saw an old man holding a stick and shaking. He thought to himself, "This old man looks like he wants to beat me up. I must find out what's going on." So he walked up and he said, "What is happening? How have I offended you? Why are you not wishing me well?" Goha finally had to speak, and he said, "It's not that I don't wish you well, it's just I'm unlucky. I don't want to say anything, lest something happened to you." The Sultan said, "What can happen with wishing someone well? I know 100 years is a lot to ask for, and it's nice people want me to have that. But can't you even wish me a good day? Or can't you wish me to feel well today?" And Goha said, "I'm afraid." The Sultan said, "Do me a favor. I have this little wart on my nose. Can't you just wish that my wart would go away?" And Goha said, "Please, sir, I do not want to wish anything." And the Sultan said, "What can one wish hurt?" So Goha held on to the stick and he said, "I wish the wart on your nose would get better and go away." And to his surprise, he heard poof. Then he heard poof, 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 poof. And do you know what happened next? The Sultan's nose no longer had one wart. It had many warts until his nose looked like a bunch of big purple and red grapes. The Sultan was very angry, and he said, "Arrest that man. He has hurt me. He wanted to do me harm all along." Off Goha ran. He ran through the souk and through the winding streets, and finally he ran in front of a shop, and he saw another old man, and he said, "My brother, please help me. The Sultan's mad at me. Can you hide me?" The old man took Goha into his shop, which was a bookstore, and in the middle of the store there was a basket. He had Goha climb in, and he sat on top of it. The soldiers came in and said, "Have you seen an old man with a strange stick? The Sultan is very mad at him and wants to find him." "No, I have not seen anyone," the man said. And after the soldiers left, he let Goha out of the basket, and he said, "My brother, you look like a kind man. What could you have done to make the Sultan angry?" Goha told the old man what had happened. The old man said, "My brother, you are in the right place. I am a bookseller. As a bookseller, you can find all sorts of knowledge in books. I have read of magic wishing sticks. Let me go and find the book that talks about them, and maybe we can find out a way to help you." So he went to the shelves, and he looked until he found a book. and he started to read. And he said, Goa, show me your stick again. And Goa held up the stick. And the old man looked at it and turned it around. And he said, Goa, what did your letter say? The letter said, Stranger, this is a magic wishing stick. If you use it wisely, you will be very happy. If you do not use it wisely or correctly, you will regret it. Goa, look at this stick. What do you notice about it? It's just a stick. No, look at the bottom here. It's curved and it's bigger than the top. This is for you to hold. How did you hold the stick in the past? And Goha demonstrated. I held it like this. The old man said, Silly Goha, you held the stick the wrong way. When you hold it like this, your wishes come true. When you hold it upside down, whatever you wish for is done in reverse or upside down. Goha said, That makes sense. Let's test your theory. So he held the stick the right way and said, I wish for a new comfy pair of sandals. Poof! To his surprise, there were a new pair of comfy sandals on his feet. The bookseller said to Goha, Goha, you have wronged the Sultan. You must go to him and make amends before you leave the city. Goha was afraid, but the bookseller said, The Sultan is usually a good man. If you do this, he will be happy and so will you. So Goha went to the palace and he said, Sultan, I'm here to see you. You come to pay for your crimes. Throw him in jail. No, wait, said Goha. I can cure you. Please let me try. If you do not try and succeed, you will spend some time in my dungeon, said the Sultan. What can it hurt to try? So Goha took the stick and he said, Magic wishing stick, fix the Sultan's nose. And poof, 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 all the warts disappeared and the Sultan's face was smooth and clear and shiny and beautiful. The Sultan was very happy and he said to Goha, Goha, I've heard about these magic wishing sticks. Can I see yours? Goha didn't want to give it to him, but what can you do? The man's the Sultan. He gave the stick to the Sultan, and the Sultan said, I collect magical things. I'm going to keep this in my collection. Goha was very sad because, he still had to get home and he wanted to wish for a donkey. But what could he do? The Sultan said, I know you are sad, but let me give you a reward. I know you have to go home because this is not your hometown. I'm going to give you a donkey. So he gave Goha the donkey, and Goha rode